Hypergamy, I don't know what hypergamy is. Hypergamy compels women to procreate with men superior to them. Isn't the West destroying its birth rate by raising women's social status above men? None of that is true. I don't know what hypergamy is, and I don't really care. But the idea that anything compels anybody to do anything is pure determinism and just not true. There's nothing that compels women to procreate with men superior to them. Why would men want to procreate with women who are inferior to them? I certainly don't. I have no desire to procreate or to have sex, for that matter, with women who are, quote, inferior to me. The whole way of thinking about inferiority and superiority about people like that is just wrong. I don't think of my wife as inferior to me. She doesn't think of me as superior to her. I mean, that's an insult both to her and to me. An insult to all women. So this idea that Jordan Peterson and others are popularizing of, the biological basis of hierarchy between men and women in the relationship is for people who use reason, for people who actually engage their mind, who people can get beyond their genetics and their environment, completely BS. Women want to marry men that are in some way equal and complementary to themselves. In some ways, the man might be superior, stronger, I don't know, more, have a different orientation maybe. But in some ways, inferior, different, but the same. Women, just like men, want to find a partner in life that makes them better, that challenges them, and complements them, that is equally smart, if you want to use that term, although smart is such a, it's a vague term, but yeah, equally smart, equally, talented in something. But why would anybody want to do something what does superior have to do with it? Now, Rand's view of masculinity and femininity doesn't even stand up to this kind of language. She viewed masculinity as being the orientation towards physical reality, towards physical action, towards the heroic. And the feminine being an orientation towards the hero. Right? But that's not about superiority and inferiority. Is Dagny inferior to John Galt? In what sense? Is Dagny superior to Hank Rearden? In what sense? They are all, in fundamental ways, each other's equals, different, but each other's equals. They each provide the other with real values. And if they didn't provide each other with real values, there wouldn't be a relationship. But this whole evolutionary biology scheme of women, when men with money. I mean, I married, I had nothing. Zero, zilch. I'll tell you a funny story. When we got married, in the Jewish tradition, when you get married, you have this like a contract, right? It's called a ketubah, right? And you sign a contract. And in the contract it says if you get divorced or you separate or something, how much is the man willing to give the woman, right? How much is the man going to give the woman? And people stick a number in it because it's not a binding contract. So they put $1 million or whatever. And I think I put like $137 or something because that's all the money I had. And I said, I'm not putting in this thing more than I really have. That's how much I had in the bank at the time that I got married. My wife did not marry me because I had money. My wife did not compare IQs and say, oh, he's got a higher IQ than me and married me because of that. I think her IQ is higher than mine. I mean, this whole attitude of determinism, of biological necessity, so-called biological necessity, is, really, really bad. Get over it. And get over this. I know YouTube is male-dominated, so get over this attitude of superiority over women. You're not. And get over this attitude of suspicion about women. They're good women, they're bad women, just like they're good men and bad men. The MGTO, men going their own way nonsense, or incel nonsense. Stop looking for excuses not to find and not to actively look for a woman you can look up to, you can admire, to procreate with. And I don't care about people's social status. I care about individual status. And the only individual status that matters is self-esteem. And the idea that you would marry a person who doesn't have self-esteem is horrible. If you have self-esteem, you want your spouse or you want the person you're with to have self-esteem. Otherwise, the relationship would be a disaster. So again, the whole attitude towards femininity and masculinity that is modern today is absolutely wrong. I mean, there's a lot, I'm sure there's a lot to say about it, but we'll have to do a show about it. I have to bring an expert on, somebody who knows the psychology of all this. Okay. In Rand's definition, there's no inferiority. Dagny is not inferior to Gold. You have to think about what she means by orientation. The orientation of the man towards reality does not mean that he is superior. Does not mean the woman is dependent on him in any kind of metaphysical sense. But there is a meaning to the fact that men are physically stronger, that the masculinity, the aspect of masculinity is oriented differently than femininity. But it's not an issue of inferior, superior. Dagny has to be in a... Gold cannot run a railroad like Dagny can. If you've read Atlas Shrugged, which all of you should, if you haven't, then 2020 is the year to do it. John Galt cannot run a railroad like Dagny can. There are a lot of things that he cannot do as well as she can. And she cannot do certain things as well as he can. But if she was completely dependent on him, if she was inferior to him in that, then he would not love her. He would not want her. All right.
To begin with, I wonder if I can ask you to capsulize. I know this is difficult. Can I ask you to capsulize your philosophy? What is Randism?
First of all, I do not call it Randism, and I don't like that name. I call it Objectivism.
All right.
Meaning a philosophy based on objective reality. Now let me explain it as briefly as I can. First, my philosophy is based on the concept that reality exists as an objective absolute. That man's mind, reason, is his means of perceiving it. And that man needs a rational morality. I am primarily the creator of a new code of morality which has so far been believed impossible, namely a morality not based on faith. Not on faith, not on arbitrary whim, not on emotion, not on arbitrary edict, mystical or social, but on reason. A morality which can be proved by means of logic, which can be demonstrated to be true and necessary.
All right. All right.
Now, may I define what my morality is?
All right.
Because this is merely an introduction. My morality is based on man's life as a standard of value. And since man's mind is his basic means of survival, I hold that if man wants to live on earth and to live as a human being, he has to hold reason as an absolute, by which I mean that he has to hold reason as his only guide to action, and that he must live by the independent judgment of his own mind, that his highest moral purpose is the achievement of his own happiness, and that he must not force other people, nor accept their right to force him, that each man must live as an end in himself and follow his own rational self-interest.
May I interrupt now?
You may.
Because you put this philosophy to work in your novel Atlas Shrugged.
That's right.
You demonstrate it in human terms in your novel Atlas Shrugged. And let me start by quoting from a review of this novel Atlas Shrugged that appeared in Newsweek. It said that you are out to destroy almost every edifice in the contemporary American way of life, our Judeo-Christian religion, our modified government-regulated capitalism, our rule by the majority will. Other reviews have said that you scorn churches and the concept of God. Are these accurate criticisms?
Yes, I agree with the facts, but not the estimate of this criticism. Namely, if I am challenging the base of all these institutions, I'm challenging the moral code of altruism, the precept that man's moral duty is to live for others, that man must sacrifice himself to others, which is the present-day morality.
What do you mean by sacrifice himself for others? Now we're getting to the point.
One moment. Since I'm challenging the base, I necessarily would challenge the institutions you named, which are a result of that morality.
All right.
And now what is self-sacrifice?
Yes, what is self-sacrifice? You say that you do not like the altruism by which we live. You like a certain kind of Ayn Randist selfishness.
I would say that I don't like is too weak a word. I consider it evil. And self-sacrifice is the precept that man needs to serve others in order to justify his existence, that his moral duty is to serve others. That is what most people believe today.
Well, yes, we're taught to feel concerned for our fellow man, to feel responsible for his welfare, to feel that we are, as religious people might put it, children under God and responsible one for the other. Now, why do you rebel? What's wrong with this philosophy?
But that is what, in fact, makes man a sacrificial animal. That man must work for others, concern himself with others, or be responsible for them. That is the role of a sacrificial object. I say that man is entitled to his own happiness and that he must achieve it himself, but that he cannot demand that others give up their lives to make him happy. And nor should he wish to sacrifice himself for the happiness of others. I hold that man should have self-esteem.
And cannot man have self-esteem if he loves his fellow man? What's wrong with loving your fellow man? Christ, every important moral leader in man's history, has taught us that we should love one another. Why, then, is this kind of love, in your mind, immoral?
It is immoral if it is a love placed above oneself. It is more than immoral, it's impossible. Because when you are asked to love everybody indiscriminately, that is, to love people without any standard, to love them regardless of the fact of whether they have any value or virtue, you are asked to love nobody.
But in a sense, in your book, you talk about love as if it were a business deal of some kind. Isn't the essence of love that it is above self-interest?
Well, let me make it concrete for you. What would it mean to have love above self-interest? It would mean, for instance, that a husband would tell his wife, if he were moral, according to the conventional morality, that I am marrying you just for your own sake. I have no personal interest in it, but I am so unselfish that I am marrying you only for your own good.
Well, should husbands and wives
would
tally
any
up?
woman like that?
Should husbands and wives tally up at the end of the day and say, well, now, wait a minute. I love her if she's done enough for me today, or she loves me if I have properly performed my functions?
No, you misunderstood me. That is not how love should be treated. I agree with you that it should be treated like a business deal, but every business has to have its own terms and its own kind of currency. And in love, the currency is virtue. You love people not for what you do for them or what they do for you. You love them for the values the virtues which they have achieved in their own character. You don't love causelessly. You don't love everybody indiscriminately. You love only those who deserve it.
Using the super chat, and I noticed yesterday when I appealed for support for the show, many of you stepped forward and actually supported the show for the first time. So I'll do it again. Maybe we'll get some more today. If you like what you're hearing, if you appreciate what I'm doing, then I appreciate your support. Those of you who don't yet support the show, please take this opportunity. Go to YaronBrookShow.com/support or go to subscribestar.com, Yaron Brook Show, and make a kind of a monthly contribution to keep this going. I'm not sure when the next